Imagine receiving a phone call from someone who was already buried. Now imagine what they found when they dug up the grave. This isn't just a ghost story. This is a chilling, true account of a man who was declared dead, only to reach out from the other side. And what the police discovered. It's something no one was prepared for. Stay with me till the end, because the last 10 seconds might just keep you up tonight. It began on a Tuesday, not a stormy night, not a full moon. Just a plain, overcast Tuesday in a quiet Pennsylvania town most people had never heard of. The kind of place where everyone knows your name, where secrets don't last long, and where nothing ever really happens, until James Walker vanished. James wasn't the kind of guy who stirred drama. 32, quiet, reliable to a fault. He had worked at the same IT company for almost 7 years, drove the same car since college, and never once took a sick day. He loved his wife Claire, their dog Milo, and his late-night reading habit. He had no enemies, no scandals, no debt, no drama, which made it all the more terrifying when, on that dull Tuesday, James simply didn't come home. Claire had called him around 5:30 p.m. to ask if he needed anything from the grocery store. No answer. She tried again 20 minutes later. Straight to voicemail. Maybe his phone had died. Maybe he was driving. She told herself not to worry. By 9 p.m., she was pacing. By 11 p.m., she called the police. The officers told her to wait until 24 hours had passed. It was too early to report a missing person. But Claire knew. Deep in her gut, she knew something was wrong. By morning, the nightmare had started. James's silver Toyota Camry was found parked on a narrow dirt road near the edge of Rockwell Forest, a remote area known more for its hiking trails than anything sinister. The keys were still in the ignition, the door slightly ajar. His wallet sat untouched on the passenger seat. The phone, however, was gone. Search teams were dispatched immediately. Drones, dogs, helicopters, the whole town rallied behind Claire. For weeks, they combed through dense woods, muddy trails, and abandoned cabins. Not a shred of clothing. Not a single footprint. It was as if the earth had swallowed James whole. Then, 17 days after his disappearance, something was found. 2 hikers discovered a badly decomposed body half buried beneath a pile of leaves, deep within the forest, nearly 10 miles from where James' car was found. Animals had gotten to it. It was barely recognizable. The only identifiers were the remnants of a wristwatch, James's, and the dental records that confirmed the worst. James Walker was dead, or so they believed. The funeral was held the following Sunday. Closed casket, for obvious reasons. Claire was inconsolable. Friends and family filled the small-town chapel, paying respects to a man who had left behind more questions than answers. A polished headstone was placed in the cemetery just outside town. James Alexander Walker, beloved husband, 1991 to 2023. Life, as it always does, began to move on. People stopped bringing food to Claire's house. The search was closed. Police reports were filed away in drawers that would collect dust. But Claire never stopped asking questions. There were things that didn't sit right. The body had been too decomposed for the amount of time he was supposedly missing. The coroner listed the cause of death as inconclusive. No signs of trauma. No broken bones. No blunt force injury. Just nothing. It was like he had simply stopped being alive. But what haunted her most was his phone. It was never found. In the weeks after the funeral, Claire started receiving phone calls late at night. Always from blocked numbers. Always just static. At first, she thought it was some sick prank. Maybe a scammer. Maybe just paranoia. But on the 41st day since his disappearance, something changed. That night, at exactly 2:13 a.m., her landline rang. She almost didn't pick up, but something compelled her. She pressed the receiver to her ear, and heard a voice she hadn't heard in over a month. Claire? She froze. Her knees buckled. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't a dream. It was James. His voice was faint, raspy, but undeniably his. James? James, where are you? The line crackled violently. It sounded like wind. Or fire. Maybe both. Then, through the distortion, came one final whisper. They buried me alive. And the line went dead. Claire collapsed to the floor, shaking. She called the police the next morning, played them the voicemail she had recorded. But they didn't believe her. They told her grief could do strange things to the mind. One even suggested she delete the recording, for her own mental health. But she refused. Something wasn't right. Her husband had called her, from beyond the grave. Or worse, from inside it. The initial search for Ryan Caldwell was quiet, but determined. His truck was still parked outside his house. The front door was locked from the inside. No signs of struggle. No broken windows. His keys were on the table. His phone? Gone. Police combed the surrounding forest, questioning neighbors, checking security cameras. But Ryan had seemingly vanished into thin air. No clues, no leads. 3 days passed. Then the phone rang. It was 3:14 a.m. when Deputy Mallory Green, the officer assigned to Ryan's case, sat up in bed, startled by the buzzing of her phone. She'd been running on fumes, haunted by the feeling that something was wrong, not just missing person wrong, but something deeper, darker. Like the town itself was holding its breath. She answered the call. No one spoke. Just static. Then, barely audible over the crackle of noise, came a voice. "Help me." Mallory froze. She recognized that voice. "Ryan, is that you?" she whispered. The call ended. She immediately traced the number. But it was impossible. The signal had originated from within Ashgrove Cemetery. Not near it. From inside it. At dawn, a team was sent to the cemetery. They found nothing at first. No open graves, no signs of trespass. Just rows of weather-worn headstones and fog drifting lazily through the dew-covered grass. Then someone noticed it, a freshly disturbed patch of earth behind one of the oldest tombs. There was no name on the stone, just a worn angel etched into its surface. The grave hadn't been dug by tools. The earth was uneven, scooped by hand, like someone had clawed their way out. Inside the hole was a phone. Ryan's phone, still powered on. No fingerprints except his, and one new recording in the voice memo app. Mallory played it. The recording was muffled, but clear enough to hear what sounded like breathing, then scratching, and finally, Ryan's trembling voice. "I don't know where I am. It's dark. It's cold. I think I'm underground. I hear something breathing. It's not me. It's not me." Then it cut off. Back at the station, Mallory didn't know what to make of it. The tech team confirmed the audio hadn't been edited or faked. The phone had no service. There was no way it could have made that call. Yet it did. The town began whispering. Some blamed the forest. Others blamed old curses, whispered stories about the cemetery and the land it was built on. But Mallory wanted facts. So she requested to exhume the old grave where the phone was found. The town council hesitated, citing tradition, permits, and a lot of red tape. But Mallory didn't wait. That night, under the cover of darkness, she returned to the cemetery alone, flashlight in one hand, shovel in the other. And she started digging. After just a few feet, she hit something. Not a coffin. Wooden boards, broken, splintered from within. Scratches lined the inside. Long, deep, desperate scratches. Something, or someone, had been buried alive here. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. She found bones. Human bones. And next to them, wrapped in decaying cloth, was a second phone. It was older, the kind sold 10 years ago. Dead battery. Dusty. But when she pried off the back cover, a name was scratched into the casing. Ryan Caldwell. Mallory staggered back. There was no explanation. Ryan's name, on a phone that had been buried for over a decade, next to a skeleton in a grave no one remembered being used. Was it a coincidence? Or had Ryan been here before? Rain hammered against the windshield of Detective Sarah Quinn's cruiser as she pulled up to Green Hollow Cemetery. The message had been clear, coordinates from the second call, once again traced back to a specific grave. Isaac Martin, buried 5 years ago. Same voice. Same name. The locals said this part of the cemetery had always felt off, like the earth itself was uneasy. Sarah stepped out with a flashlight, her boots sinking into the muddy ground. Deputy Mark trailed behind her, holding a printed copy of the grave records. "There's no mistake," he muttered. "Isaac Martin, buried right here." Sarah aimed the beam at the worn gravestone. Isaac Martin, beloved brother, 1991 to 2018. The cold wind seemed to howl louder as they approached. And then a vibration. Her phone buzzed. Unknown caller. "Not again." Hands trembling, she answered. "Why are you here?" the voice croaked. Low. Echoing. Warped, like someone speaking through torn vocal cords. "Isaac?" she asked. "What happened to you? How are you calling?" No response. Just breathing. Then static. Then, still here. The call ended. Mark stared at her, eyes wide. "Did you record that?" Sarah nodded. She'd set her phone to auto-record after the second call. This voice, it wasn't just a prank. There was something real in it. Something tormented. That's when the ground began to shift. Right beneath Isaac's grave. The The soil stirred like something was crawling underneath. Mark stepped back, pulling out his gun. What the hell? Cracks split the earth, dirt sliding away as the wooden casket slowly rose. Not on its own pushed. Sarah dropped to her knees, adrenaline surging. Help me open it. They dug fast, not even thinking anymore. Hands numb, breath short, they tore through the loosened earth and ripped the lid open. Empty, the coffin was stained. Claw marks on the inside, like someone had tried to escape, or had been placed in it alive. Sarah's stomach turned. There's no body, but there was something. A cell phone. Dead. Old. Caked in dried blood. She picked it up. It buzzed. Her screen lit up. Incoming file, audio message. Her heart froze as the file began playing automatically. I begged them not to bury me. I was awake. I heard them shoveling. Felt the dirt. I screamed until my throat bled. They thought I was dead. The voice cracked, desperate, inhuman. I'm not the only one. Silence. Then something different. A second voice. Not Isaac's. Colder. Deeper. Not human. He's ours now. Then screaming. The file ended. Sarah stared at Mark. He wasn't buried by accident. He was buried by design. Mark's face paled. Then who the hell buried him alive? Just then more buzzing. 5 more messages. All unknown. And 5 more graves began to rumble in the rain. Sarah couldn't breathe. One grave was terrifying. But 5? All beginning to tremble. The cemetery, silent just moments ago, now echoed with the haunting creaks of disturbed soil and whispering winds, like the forest was listening. Mark stepped back, gun still drawn, though it felt useless now. This isn't just about Isaac. No, Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. It's something bigger. Something buried. They moved cautiously toward the second grave. This one read, Emily Rhodes, 1995 to 2020. I remember this case, Sarah said. She went missing. Never found. But someone filed a death certificate? Mark asked. Sarah nodded grimly. No body. Just a presumption. Lightning cracked above them. The soil cracked open. Sarah knelt, hand trembling, and lifted the half-rotten coffin lid. Empty. Again, except for one thing. A torn voice recorder. She pressed play. At first, just static. Then, please, I'm still here. I hear them digging, someone help me. Emily's voice weak. Broken. And then, the same deep, otherworldly voice from Isaac's file. She screamed, but the dirt doesn't care. A faint chuckle. She never died alone. The file cut out. Sarah reeled back, heart pounding. These people didn't just die, they were sacrificed. Mark's flashlight flickered. He slapped it. Nothing. Darkness now wrapped around them like a shroud. Suddenly, a scream. From the far side of the cemetery. High-pitched. Male. They ran toward it, pushing through the trees. And froze. Standing at an open grave was a man in a hospital gown. He was barefoot. Dirt caked his hands. His eyes hollow. It was Isaac, alive. Barely. His lips quivered. They're still down there. Sarah stepped forward. Isaac! Who did this to you? He looked past her. Eyes wide. Not who what. Suddenly his body contorted, his back arching violently. Like something was pulling him. He screamed. Don't let them take me back. Sarah lunged, but it was too late. The ground beneath Isaac split open. And swallowed him whole. Gone. Mark screamed. What the hell is happening? Sarah stood frozen. Rain pouring. The earth now calm again. No Isaac. Just silence. And then, her phone buzzed. Unknown caller. She answered. This time, no words. Just whispers. Thousands of voices. Layered. Crying. Begging. Screaming. And a final phrase. He was only the beginning. The call cut. Sarah didn't sleep for days. The cemetery. Isaac. The whispering phone calls. Every part of it rewrote the rules of reality. She filed reports, sure, but no one listened. No one believed. Her partner, Mark, transferred cities a week later. Said he needed distance. But his eyes told the truth. He was terrified. Sarah stayed behind. Not because she was brave, but because something in those whispers said her name. She had to know why. It was a Wednesday night when it happened again. 2:17 a.m. Her phone buzzed. Telephone receiver, unknown caller. She didn't hesitate. Hello? Nothing. Then a breath. Followed by a voice. Sarah. Not Isaac. Not Emily. A new voice. Deep. Slow. Familiar in a way that made her stomach twist. Why did you bury the truth? Her heart slammed into her ribs. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Another breath. Then the voice said, "Look under your floorboards." The line went dead. She stared at her phone for a full minute, paralyzed. Then she moved. Her apartment creaked under her footsteps. Everything was too quiet. She grabbed a crowbar from her hallway closet. The floorboards in her living room had always been uneven. She'd assumed water damage. She pried them open. One by one. The wood groaned. Dust rose. And then she found it. A phone. Old. Flip style. Covered in dirt. Still powered on. And beside it, a cassette tape with a label scratched into the plastic. Final call. She stood frozen. Heart thundering. But she pressed play. Isaac's voice filled the room. But not scared this time. Calm. Almost hypnotic. "If you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it. Or maybe, I never left." Static. Then the deep voice again. "You thought it was a curse. A haunting. More static. But you buried the truth. All of you." Another pause. "You were there, Sarah. Years ago. When it started. You forgot, didn't you?" Her legs gave out. She dropped to the floor. "I what?" "No. You saw them. The first ones. The sacrifices. But they made you forget. Until now." She gasped. Images flashed in her head. Children screaming. Blood. Dirt. A circle of masked figures chanting. She had been there. She had blocked it out. Or someone helped her forget. The voice whispered one final time. "You answered the call. Now you belong." Her lights went out. The room went dark. And from the open floorboards, a hand reached out. Whether you believe in the supernatural, cults, or just terrifying coincidences, this story leaves us with one question. What if death isn't the end? What if it's just the beginning of something worse? If this story chilled you to the bone, drop a comment below with your theory. And subscribe, because the next story might just be your nightmare.